like ring pop.
Yeah.
So we rolling?
Oh, so here we are, like
Awesome.
horrible people.
Let's get into it, man.
Yeah.
Nick Jordan. Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. Thanks
Hopefully
for
I
having
can
me.
use your last name and your first name.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I've heard, I've heard a lot about you. I've heard your name a lot. So the guys that work here, Sean, Devin, they all, oh yeah, Nick. I'm like, okay, I got to meet Nick. Who's
Yeah.
Nick?
I go pretty far back with these guys, and it's always been like a family business. So everybody's family. It's super cool.
Super chill.
Oh yeah.
So how did you guys meet? Let's get into that, just in general. Did you meet, obviously, Jimmy first?
So
Yep.
so let's see here. My earliest recollection would be I was working at a restaurant in my little neighborhood at the time, probably 17, 18 years old. And
You were just a kid.
Yeah, we were both kids. Nick and I were. I feel like we're still kids, but now even.
Every day.
That's right.
So I think he rolled in, and the thought was that at the time there were only a handful of, and still to this day, food distributors, and so they were trying to just sell to an account. And,
where were you guys at?
we were on the lower South Hill at a little restaurant called Benedito's.
Okay, so here in Spokane there.
Yeah, great place. Pretty much, I feel like that gentleman, Chris, he is the pioneer for absolute pizza in this
It's a pizza institution. Yeah.
He's also a great guy in the fact that I think a lot of my friends that have come through there, we all have our own restaurants, businesses now. So you have to really think about how far that reach is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, anyways, I was probably a young kid, dumb, still to this day. Anyways,
Aren't we
but
all?
yeah, Nick was just asking about possibly us buying some food there. And at the time, I couldn't make any decisions. I could barely, I had pretty much asked to use the bathroom. You know what I mean? Because you don't know any better when you first start working in any kind of job, let alone a restaurant job. So
You don't know what the boundaries are. And
yeah.
what the,
And so that was kind of how we met. And then and like any good salesman or broker, you continue to show up week after week after week, regardless of whether you're selling or not, because you never know what could change overnight. So we kind of developed that friendship of, and one day I just told Nick, I was like, you know what? I think if I ever have the opportunity to buy food from you, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 14, 15 years ago.
So at the time then,
15.
you were working for the food distributor.
Yep.
And that's
Yes.
okay.
I had just started. I was brand new.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was
we
doing.
the same age? We're all probably about the same age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're about the same
Relatively
age.
speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like he had just started, I had just kind of started, so obviously, but at the time, I was there every day. So I mean,
Yeah.
that speaks volumes. And so, and then fast forward, I think, what do you think was when I saw you again? Zentropa, probably?
Yeah, you went out
Yeah.
to Cheney.
Yeah.
Helped that guy out. You were consulting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opened a restaurant for those guys. And then you were the first phone call that I made for food. Yeah.
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 And you weren't there that long.
11 months, I think. That was all my obligation was.
Were you guys both married then, or did you, because I know you guys have been married for a long time.
Yeah, I was married.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I was married years before I met Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I met
How long
her-
you been married, Nick?
So in March, I think 18 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Three
Maybe.
beautiful kids.
Maybe 18 years.
Yeah, something like that.
We celebrated our anniversary on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
Yeah. She reminded me because I always forget.
What's funny is I don't even know what day my anniversary is.
Just pick
We
one.
just pick a day.
Yeah. Just
sometime
land
in
on a
summer.
good
She'll be
day.
happy.
Yeah. So the great thing is, with Nick and I, after that, one day I was just kind of like, I think I was on, like I said, transitioned back to, I had just started a family. And so my son at the time was 2.5, never been on a city bus in his life. I grew up riding a city bus in Seattle, Washington, every day to downtown Seattle from the outskirts of SeaTac. So I put him on a bus because he wanted to ride a bus. And I thought at the time that the bus ride would be pretty short and there'd just be a straight shot. Well, it turns out,
10, 15 minutes, whatever.
yeah, it turned out to be like a 2 or 3 hour journey. So I'm rolling down, get to the bus plaza, transfer to another bus. At that time, you pack a few snacks. Your kid's like 3 years old. What's he gonna eat? So
Goldfish crackers.
yeah, so here we are. Fast forward, we're on the bus, multiple transfers later, and about an hour and a half, we're coming down 32nd Spokane Valley, close to Highway 27, and I kind of peek to my left and I see this little pizza restaurant. So, I like pizza, obviously. And
Who
I
doesn't?
figured he's
Yeah.
hungry, so I'm gonna get off the bus, walk across the street, walk in, try to get a pizza and possibly a beverage for myself because we're on the bus. So
You got a
and then-
driver.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then continue on our way to try to make it to Toys R Us. At this point, Toys R Us.
So that
is
was the
still-
end. Like, hey, let's get on this bus. We're going to find a way to get to Toys R
We're
Us.
just gonna ride the bus to Toys R Us and then ride the bus home. Right?
That's great.
And so I get off.
Back when they were still in business.
Yeah, we pop in there. I look around. Obviously, I didn't realize this at the time, but it was as soon as I opened the door, I knew it was takeout only. And so there's no food there for my kiddo, no drinks. And so then that kind of thought nothing of it, but I was like, wow, what a beautiful neighborhood. I had never been, that far south in the valley.
And that's where I lived.
Yeah,
And there's no places to eat. There's no restaurants. There was one little dive bar that's not there anymore.
So this was date-wise. This was back in what, early
10, 11 years
2000s?
This is probably
Like housing crash time?
so.
after, yeah.
So
Just
it was
after
right
that?
after 2010 when,
Yeah.
in my point of view,
Yeah.
restaurants just took a dump.
Oh yeah, everything
It was
did.
bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know when did you open there? What year was that?
I want to say, let's see here, 30 Seconds been there at least 10, 11 years. My son's 10, so yeah, 10 years, right?
So anyway, you go into this
13,
restaurant
yeah.
and
Nothing to eat, so we get back on the bus. Obviously, I had to wait for the next bus, which, Anyways, on with our story. I get home and I just tell my wife, I was like, you know what? I think I kind of know what I'm going to do. And so then I called Nick. I'm like, hey, Nick, what do you think about this location? And he's a Valley kid. So
Yeah,
Nick, give us a little background. Where'd you grow up? Like in
So I grew up just south of town, Rockford, Washington, really small town. Like
Yeah.
there was 500-600 people there when I was growing up. Not much going on out in Rockford, but my dad had owned a barbecue like catering business when I was a kid. So I helped him. So I kind of came up through restaurants in that way, in a sense, do
Right.
the catering stuff. I worked for a bed and breakfast out there. So we would do huge caterings, corporate caterings. And then eventually I got into full-fledged like restaurant work. So I was working in hotels, mostly hotel bars, and then transitioned into food service sales. But I mean, I'm a restaurant guy. I've been doing it since
but
I
you
was
have a
kid.
ton of exposure though to like just the service industry,
Oh,
like
yeah.
food and hotels and
Yeah, I've worked at some great places, bar, grills, pizza places. Because I worked with Jimmy when he first opened.
Yeah.
And occasionally now when Jimmy calls me, I'll come in and help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But
Right?
yeah, so that's my background. I have ketchup running through my veins, I guess you would say, like Jimmy
sauce for
does.
me.
Soy sauce for Jim.
Ketchup for you.
No,
mine's
soy
probably
sauce and
teriyaki sauce.
Sriracha.
Yeah.
So that was really my upbringing, small town. Did a lot of caterings with my dad. Did big events. Did the fairs. Serving thousands of people.
Nick,
I-
when was your first real? Let's see here. The best way to probably ask this question is, when did you feel like you were actually entrenched into a job in a restaurant?
Oh, definitely hotels. So
Yeah.
a hotel restaurant is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
Because you're open 24 hours a day. The people are living there, in essence, so it's their house. They think they can do whatever they want, usually most hotel guests. So it's a lot different than a standalone restaurant like this. We had the room service aspect. You've got the bar that's open till 2 a.m. You're serving food all hours of the day, three meal services, so breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Room service running.
And then you've got the banquet rooms, which, huge weddings, conferences, all that stuff. So people that haven't worked in a restaurant that's inside of a hotel, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop.
So when people, because Rach and I, my wife, we joke all the time, oh, we should start a bed and breakfast. That's a whole different animal than just having.
That's such a niche area.
Yeah.
Bed and breakfast is like people are living in your house and you're going to cook them like bacon and eggs.
Okay.
It's not like a hotel, not
Okay.
like a full service hotel. It is 24 hours a day. You're open Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, every holiday. And those are big events. So when you're working in hotels in food service, you do not get days off. You don't get holidays off.
So let's fast forward now to, that's kind of where we started, and then what I'm interested in is, when did you first actually step foot behind a bar?
So it was funny, the hotel that I first started at that time still had to be 21 to bartend. I was just a server, I was 19, in the restaurant, and then our banquet captain, the guy that ran the banquets department, he would pull me in to big events and have me bartend, and I'm not 21, it's illegal, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
I didn't think anything of it, because I'm always like, yes, sir, I'll do what you want me to.
But did you love it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was fun because the banquet settings are totally different. If it's a corporate party, those people are getting down.
Yeah.
They are, because it's an open bar. They're drinking all they want. They all have hotel rooms. So it can get out of hand.
There's no holding back.
There isn't.
Yeah.
And I was 19. I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. But
So I've got a huge line because everybody's like, this guy keeps pouring drinks. And I'm like, why am I so busy? Well, the other bartenders are like metering the amount that these guests are drinking because we're serving
86ing certain ones.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Or let's slow down, buddy. Come
Go
back
to the
in an
young
hour.
guy over there. He
Yeah.
won't stop. Yeah, he won't stop pouring.
I think that's the beauty of, let's transition to that. So that kind of coincides with the fact that I think when you absolutely get introduced to alcohol at a young age, such as myself and yourself, in that industry, you kind of fall in love with it.
You do.
It becomes kind of your lifestyle. For me, it always has been, it always will be. And I love being here. I love, making a drink, making a pizza. But most of what I like is the fact that you get to be who you are, and people get to follow you. And
So when you say fall in love, do you fall in love with the idea of serving alcohol and being on that side, or just
just the
being
life-
around alcohol?
the
in
lifestyle
general?
for me.
It's a
How about for you?
lifestyle.
Yeah.
It is. The one thing is you don't when you're a bartender, you don't take your job home with you, but most of the time you're after work, you're taking your job with you to the next bar.
Yeah.
Like everybody's hanging out as a family after work, trying to get the restaurant closed down within an hour so that you can go out and get drinks before last call, right?
Yeah, and you become like this club. Especially if you are in a position where you're actually a bartender and you're making drinks and you're running a rail and you're making drinks for multiple settings. It's hard for me to. I think the best way to express this is when you first start out as a bartender, if you're lucky enough to even bartend 2 nights, 3 nights a week, when we came up as kids, that would be a godsend.
Yeah.
You would have to claw tooth and nail just to get one night. Because you have all these experienced bartenders who, like, again, they are part of a club. Their interest is not to, like, teach you how to replace them. That's just the way it goes. Because the money is good, the lifestyle is phenomenal.
What kind of money are we talking? I mean, I know it's probably changed over the last 10 years, but like as a 19-year-old, if you were a full-time bartender at a successful spot, how much you pulling in?
So you would easily 60 grand.
Wow.
And that's in 2008, 2009.
Yeah. Today's dollar's probably what, 120,000.
So now minimum wage in Washington's high now.
Yeah.
I look at the numbers thinking what I used to do as a bartender making $7.85 an hour. Now it's $16.88, right?
And
So do they
now-
still pay minimum wage and then tips, or do they pull it back to like, you
Back
only
then,
get 10
it was
because
tip
you're
comp. Now it's not. So.
okay?
I never worked in a place that did that. I got all my tips.
Yeah.
Now I took care of the cooks. I gave them some of my tips
Yeah.
and the back servers, but you can make great money in this industry.
Yeah.
And no tax on tips now, right? Current administration. Is
Well,
that
they're
the
working
push?
on it.
They're working on
I
it.
don't think that's been pushed through yet, but
But it depends on where you're at. I mean, let's just be honest. A lot of bartenders, servers out there, when they're being tipped cash, I'm pretty sure like more than 80% of them don't even report that, which is, I mean, that's on them. To each his own. But
Right.
So backwards to being 19, 20, 21 now, right? You're now full-fledged bartender.
yeah. And I had to fight for it. So
Yeah.
I was helping bartend in these, banquet settings, but my main job was a server in the restaurant. And we had just opened, and this was like the nicest restaurant in Spokane at the time. There was nothing like it.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Can you say the name?
I'd rather not.
That's fine.
that's okay.
yeah.
yeah.
It's a big hotel in Spokane.
Yeah.
We probably seat
I think I know which one you're
200
talking
to
about.
300 people.
Yeah.
It was a big deal
Gotcha.
when we first opened, and I was there before they built the restaurant, during the construction, and then I helped open it.
Yeah.
And I spent like 7 years there.
Yeah.
But they had their group of bartenders that were all older guys in their 40s that had
Yeah.
been doing it for 20 years.
They're not letting you in. Yeah.
Not at all.
They want you to stock ice, take the trash out,
Yeah.
sweep the floors.
And I'm trying to get as much exposure to be a bartender because that's what I wanted to do.
Because back then, there wasn't like an app on your phone that says, "Oh, this is how you make a drink."
Right.
I mean,
that was the
you
next
had
question.
to actually
Yeah.
show you. Like, you had to shake a martini the way it should have been.
Yeah.
You stir a drink the way it was supposed to be made,
And these
So-
guys I was learning from, they had really good experience in like 5-star settings. So in their mind, they were an encyclopedia of drinks. They knew all the drinks.
Right.
So like Jimmy said, I'm not going on Google looking up drinks. Like
No.
I have to work with these guys and memorize these drinks.
And these guys aren't even teaching you. You're just kind of sneaking over there.
You're picking it up through
You're
osmosis,
watching.
and
You're totally
Because
just watching.
they don't
Yeah.
want to teach you. That's
Yeah.
The thing. Yeah. But you have to appreciate the fact that a lot of bartenders coming up through this industry, you don't just get to sit behind a bar. You don't. You got to earn your way. Yeah, so.
And if it's a busy bar, it is hard to teach somebody.
Yeah.
Like there's not downtime. Happy
Yeah.
hour starts at 3, it goes to 6, and then now you're in dinner rush.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to slow down and show you how to make these drinks.
Right.
It's just a trial by fire.
Yeah, so like I said, it's back to your story, you know, being young, being our age, doing what we do. You started bartending a lot earlier than I did. I didn't really actually start pouring any alcohol until I opened a restaurant. And that was
Yep.
part of the reason why I opened a restaurant. To be honest with you, I kind of thought about the fact that, you know, you think about all these great changes you want to make, and you can suggest things all you want, but when it's not your place, nobody cares. And that's
Right.
just the way life is.
Oh, yeah.
The suggestion bin is the trash can, you know? So that's theoretically, I opened my own place thinking, you know what, I'm going to pour liquor.
Yeah.
You know, because if I have to pull like my own tooth out just to get a shift bartending, why don't I just do it myself for myself? Part of that transition is, you know, that's the only way that I could do it.
And what I loved about you opening the first spot
Yeah.
is you based how much money you needed to make on how many beers you need to sell per day. My overhead's this is what my lease is.
Yep.
This is how much I'm going to make on a 16-ounce beer.
Yeah.
You're like, Nick, I got to pour 73 beers per day to make my
Yep.
nut.
We have to do that every day,
Yep.
and that's how we justify the space and the seats, and the time.
And you guys were at $5 a pint,
Yeah.
which even at that time, for a craft beer, it was $6, $7 everywhere else.
Yeah.
You guys were $5 across the board for all 10 taps,
Yeah.
and you sold a ton of beer.
And we didn't do any happy hour because it's always happy hour, because it was such a good value.
Yeah.
And we used to do a $2 double, so you would,
Yeah.
you know, $7 for, you know, $5 for a shot Jack, 7 for a double. Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Go get a double Jack now anywhere. It's like $22.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Expensive,
Yeah.
especially
But
in
it was-
Vegas. So you came into that space, though. I want to backpedal a little bit. You came into that space. You were saying earlier that it felt like they were shutting down, like that was kind of their last day or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we didn't go into that space because that's kind of not the space that we're after. We were after the neighborhood and the plaza. So when you looked at the space back then, like you said, it was pretty much they were probably only about 20% occupied in that
That strip.
mall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of picked. It happened to just be the old. It was an old Mormon bookstore, and then it became like a video game kind of place, I believe. And so, we just thought that because it was an empty space and the space that I had walked into, the configuration just wasn't quite right for what we wanted to do. So that was kind of the day that we just kind of drew out a plan on a napkin to see if it would work, and then we took some measurements, and then we just kind of we're off and going from there. But back to Nick, the craziest part about how we met each other and what we do is that we both background-wise, you know, when you work in this industry, and you come up through this industry, a lot of your friends, you know, whether it's your significant other, your girlfriends, some of your best friends to this day, are all still with you in this industry or started with you in this industry. So my thought has always been that it's hard to remove yourself from this industry once you start in this industry, whether it's, and by that I mean, for me, it's food and beverage. For Nick, it's also food and beverage because he's still doing the same thing, just in a different facet. So
The Matrix has you, though.
yeah,
The restaurant
we
Matrix
will
has
always
you.
be in
Yep.
this industry, you know, and it's hard to think nowadays that everybody, I feel in my mind, should at one point in their life work a shift in a restaurant.
I think so.
Yeah,
You learn so much about people
yeah,
in a different way though, because it's transactional in a way, but you're building that rapport. Like you have regulars that come in here that have been coming in since before you opened.
yeah, yeah,
Probably customers from the first spot,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, first, second.
I see
third
them all
spot.
the time.
Yeah.
So you get ingrained with them on a social and personal level that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's all about the service.
Yeah.
Like you can serve mediocre drinks and food. You don't want to, but you can. But if the service is great, people are going to come in and socialize. They're
Yeah.
going to sit at the bar and tell you what's going on in their personal life.
Yeah.
And that's what we hear every day in
Yeah.
this business.
Yeah.
So we learn like, man, that guy is going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Like I need to help him in this 45 minutes that he's going to be sitting at the bar and help pull him through this.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what we talked about the very first episode that we shot. Was one of the reasons that we love coming here is we know it's going to be the staff that we recognize. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Sean, what's up, bud? Hey, Devin, how's it going? Hey, Jamie, what was the best thing that happened to you this week? And it's the
Absolutely.
same people and the same good service. And you're right. It's kind of the cheers.
Oh,
where
yeah.
everybody knows your name.
Yep.
But that's the reason that you want to go down and be recognized and like, oh, hey, they're going to know who I am when I come in there. And
Know what you drank.
exactly. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I know half the time we'd get up to the door in the summertime before we would come in, and Devin's walking out with the beer that I'm going to order. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
It's ready.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
ready to go. Yeah, we're ready for you. You know, the head's already come off the glass.
Right.
You know, on a beer. So
Yeah.
So you guys have been married for a long time too. Were you saying something that you guys met your wives through the same industry? Through
We
the
totally
wrestling
did.
industry?
Yeah. Yeah, I reconnected with my wife at a bar. I mean, I had grown up with her. We went to middle school together, but, you know, through college and high school, the rest of high school and college, we didn't see each other until one day she walked into a neighborhood pizzeria that I was working at, you know. And Nick, how about you? Like,
Same thing. So I was working at the hotel, and my now wife
Yeah.
got hired as a hostess, and she hadn't worked in restaurants before.
Yeah.
Her dad came from the restaurant industry, so he knew the business. So he got her hired there because he knew the manager of that restaurant. And we hit it off right away. And
Yeah.
if she hadn't come from that background, being in restaurants in her whole life, and her dad doing that, I don't think it would have worked. Because we work a lot, we go out a lot, right?
Yeah.
When we're bartending. But she kind of understood that because her dad was in that business for 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, she knew what it was about.
it's pretty amazing to me, Nick, that we've both survived the constant, it's like being in a washing machine, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, because if I don't know very many sober bartenders. I really don't. And if good for them if they can do it. And whether that's you take a break for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, it doesn't. I mean, for me, that's been the hardest part about my job is, you know, I absolutely love alcohol, man.
Right.
You know, whether it's, and that's been part of my lifestyle. So it's really extremely hard in this industry for me to continue to do what I do and be sober.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a lot of people that you guys have gotten to meet over the years, or that you've seen that have gone through that process? If they were a bartender, everything went to shit,
A
their
lot.
marriages went to shit because of that reason?
a very high percentage of people.
Probably. Yeah,
Jim, we know so many people that just, they've slipped through the cracks of society.
I think every one of my friends,
It's crazy.
every single one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are you guys the anomaly? Like, what's...
I think it's the family unit. We have something to go home to at the end of the day. Not that these other people didn't, but I think Jim and I are on the same page as it's family first, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's our kids first.
Yeah.
And our wives are understanding, and we're grateful for that because in this industry, your nights, you don't know how late they're going to be, you know, and so routines are a little bit more hard to get accustomed to at first, especially when you have a young family and you're not really aware of the fact that for me, to be honest and truthful, it's hard to be a young adult in a bar with a lot of friends and family,
Yeah.
and then have to separate yourself from that and go home and be functioning and be contributing and
Being hungover.
Be a parent,
Yes.
Well, I could see
You got a
really
baby.
easily that
Yeah.
that some people's lives would serve as a warning, where others could serve as an example. So what do you think that you did that was different? Did you have ground rules, like, okay, I won't drink 2 hours before I'm off shift, or I won't drink if there's something that my wife and I are doing that evening, or like, was there something that you said, okay, here's the rules I'm going to stick to? Or was it just...
I never set any
You know?
rules for myself, which that would have been a great idea.
yeah, me, I have not, and over the years, you can lie to yourself and say, hey, I'm not gonna, you know, drink when I'm doing this or that or anything else. I think sobriety for me is always based on the fact that, like you said, again, back to the same reality of family first, right? Mm-hmm. You know, your first kid, you learn a few lessons. Your second kid, you learn a few lessons.
Yeah.
Your third kid, I mean, keep going because it never ends. And so once you prioritize the fact that this industry will eat you alive if you just don't separate yourself from work, then for me, when I get off of work here, 10 years ago, I'm sticking around and having a drink, you know?
Now you're just
Yeah.
cutting it. You're going home.
You know, 5 to 6 years ago, I started saying, hey, you know what? the minute I'm done with work, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You know, and that even being said, that was I'm out of here. But as soon as I get closer to my house, I'm probably gonna stop at a bar and have a drink. You know.
Yep.
And then that curtails into. And that's a never-ending cycle. You're gonna go through that over and over and over again, and it never gets any easier. So, the thought of this, our conversation today, is it's really hard to be in this industry and to continue to be in this industry, and try to have some sense of like what you consider a success, because, you know, a lot of people who are great restaurant managers, owners, facilitators, they struggle in all aspects, and that always leads back to alcohol, being in a bar. And so for my young staff here, it's hard to teach them that, because they're just in an hour. They're young enough to where they don't have very many obligations. They are now just kind of starting to realize that, like, you know, hey, yeah, I get off work early enough to still enjoy my life, you know, and then I don't have to work until a little bit later in the afternoon, so I can be hungover at 2 p.m. and still be okay to come to work at 4.
It's amazing what your body will tolerate to at a point. You have enough alcohol over the course of a not long enough period of time, you feel normal.
Yeah, Nick, so how many
3,
times
4
have you
beers deep.
actually...
Yeah.
Can you count how many times you've quit drinking, Nick?
No.
Yeah.
No. There's been so many times where I'm like, I'm not going to drink, and I stop for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, no, I couldn't count.
I don't know very many restaurant facilitators, owners, and even bartenders, servers who are of age that probably can say the only way that they've either completely quit is because they're dead and gone, or because they've left this industry altogether.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a hard industry to be in.
It's
I mean, what? No, go ahead, Nick.
It's an anomaly when you talk to somebody that works in a bar that doesn't drink.
Yeah.
It's 5 years ago, it was totally like, if somebody was a bartender or a chef or something, and they said, yeah, I just don't drink, it was strange. It was very uncommon. It's starting to move the other way now, where a lot of the chefs and bartenders that I work with are, hey, I don't drink anymore.
Right.
I
It's because we're
exercise
just
now.
older. Yeah,
Yep.
we're a little bit older. We've kind of had a lot of life experience to reference.
Well, I feel like and this is probably the worst example or clumsy example, but I feel like it sounds like when you start out in that industry, and it's almost like this is what you're going to do. Kind of like if you attributed it to, did you ever watch that show on Netflix, The Deadliest Catch?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if you were brought up in it, that's just what you're going to do.
Yep.
You know, you're so ingrained in that culture that you can't not do it.
You're destined to do that for the rest of your life.
Right. And not to say that you don't absolutely enjoy it, because I mean, there has to be some level of enjoyment of what you do to.
Oh, I love this industry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't like it.
This is the best industry for me to be in.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
what would you tell? So if you said, if my kid said, Dad, I want to be like Jimmy, I want to go pour beer all day.
I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in.
What would you
I'm in, man.
Take
I'm all
it.
in.
Yeah.
what would you recommend? What would you say then? It's like, okay, I mean, how do you?
I would tell them right out of the gates, you're going to be around alcohol 24 hours a day. The people you're serving are going to be intoxicated or not, but
Yeah.
mostly under the influence.
Everybody's
Sounds
gonna be
like
offering you a
college,
drink
man.
At some point.
It's
like college all day long,
but you're getting
yeah.
paid for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just preface it with
Maybe I should
just
switch careers.
keep yourself in check, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Call me if you need a ride. Be
yeah,
honest with your dad. Hopefully. You know, like, not about everything that's going on, but if you need a ride home, please
call me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think, so I've been a really fortunate person in the fact that I've owned a bar for a lot of my life. I've worked in bars and restaurants my whole life that have alcohol. I've been exposed to that at a young age. And I've never had a DUI. And I think I'm a small percentage of people who've
haven't either.
operated, worked, come up through a restaurant, who's been fortunate enough to not have a DUI. And I have a long track. I mean, so you have to really think that in itself really dictates, you know, like in this industry, in the bar industry especially, you know, I always tell my staff that as hard as it sounds, we almost kind of rely on the DUI, you know, because absolutely now I believe they're going to try to drop the requirement, right, for blood alcohol.
the level. Yeah,
Yeah.
So what do you mean you rely on the DUI to keep people from going too far?
No, to stay in business.
Oh, I
Think
got
about
you.
that, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
We that's what we do. We are here to provide an alcoholic beverage at the end of the day, because that's where the money is. So you chase the dollars. I mean, you want to pay the bills.
Is there, and I've heard rumor of this, I don't know if it's true or not, you guys could tell me, is there a point at which the person serving the alcohol legally has to say, hey, I can't serve you anymore, or I will get in trouble as a server?
Yes, everybody's trained when they get a mass in the state to recognize, telltale signs that if somebody walks in the doors and if you feel like at your best discretion they are intoxicated, you just don't serve them. You cut them off, you get them a ride. We are entitled. We absolutely, as a bar or restaurant owner, have to have some way to get somebody home. Whether it's a taxi, nowadays there's so many platforms of getting people home.
Oh,
Uber.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uber, Lyft.
Yeah.
Back in the
Yeah.
day, you would always have like a few cards.
For taxi
Yeah.
services.
And then
Yep.
you get to know these guys really well because you're calling them like 10 to 20 times a night sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're throwing him a $20 bill, like,
Yeah.
hey, thanks for getting this guy out of
this
here.
guy
He's
out.
going to be a mess.
Yeah.
He's probably going to
In the
vomit
back of- yeah.
in the back of your cab. Sorry, thank you for helping.
Yeah.
Probably
Like it-
saving some lives.
Yeah.
Sounds like another business opportunity, Jimmy. It's like Jimmy's,
Drunk drivers.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
there's no opportunity there, my friend.
Well, you have to be careful when you're serving alcohol, right?
Yeah,
it's
you
your
do.
it's your responsibility to monitor those people and
And then the responsibility ultimately falls, at the end of the day on the person or persons that hold a liquor license for an establishment, right?
Right.
So it just kind of tumbles downhill. So if you don't train your servers and your bartenders properly, and they don't continue to educate themselves on, state regulated, fairly regulated laws, then obviously at the end of the day you're responsible. And when you do lose your license and that's what you rely on, then you may as well not open the doors. 'Cause we're not here to sell.
Those aren't cheap
soda,
either,
pizza.
are they? I know
No,
it's probably
it
different
just-
for Washington versus Idaho, but
the liquor license.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally different system.
It's state to state, always different. But here where we operate, it always has been that, it's unfortunate and it's always a learning experience when you have a young bartender who serves a minor. And I've witnessed it at restaurants I've worked at. I've witnessed it here. And it's hard to go through that with them because
You got stung when I was here one day.
yeah.
I
think-
was here because you and I think Scott had to run out for a minute,
Yeah.
and I have a mass license.
Yeah.
I can be behind the
Yeah.
bar, and I'm considered an employee.
Yeah.
And they came in on a sting operation.
Yeah.
And the guy was looking around. It's like 11 o'clock
Yeah.
on a Tuesday.
Did he have a fake ID or something?
No, they
No.
have a badge. They're officers.
No, I mean like the kid that was
They
underage.
have to absolutely have their real ID. And they are honestly not trying to put you in a corner.
Right.
They're very honest with you. If you ask them, are you 21? They'll tell you no.
Yeah.
It's like they will give you their ID. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you just hand them a beer, then it's on you. I mean, that's the hardest part about being a bartender is when you rely on that income, especially if you're making a better living than most,
Right.
and you don't get to serve alcohol in your establishment to your regulars for any period of time, whether it's a day or 10 days or 15 days or ever again. It's everybody's livelihood. It's just not yours.
Yeah.
It's your other coworkers. It's the bar owner. It's mini bars if that's what it entails. But that's a lot of weight on your shoulders, to be behind a bar and to make sure that people are carrying themselves with some sense of respect, as well as yourself.
Right.
And Nick knows this. He's worked in some really fast-paced restaurants where, all you have time for is
Making drinks.
Yeah.
Like you're just hammering out, tickets after ticket after ticket. So it's hard to monitor in those situations, but
Yeah.
it's still your responsibility. Like,
yeah. So say for instance you're the bartender and you have somebody serve as an underage server. They legally at the age of 18 with the mass can actually serve that product, but they can't draw it. They can't mix it. So technically, if you are a bartender and your server serves it away, you're also responsible, right?
God, I feel like there'd be some sort of, not to cut off your thought, Jimmy, but some sort of tech that you could have in place to mitigate. Like maybe, God forbid, you walk into a bar and there's facial recognition and it knows, hey, this person is underage, flagged.
Yeah.
Face on the screen, whatever. Don't serve this dude.
Yep.
Or something that you could, hey, give me your ID. Great. Here's a thumbprint. Whatever. You've been pre-checked ahead of time with that restaurant. Put your thumbprint in. Okay, yeah, you're good to go. We know who you are. I don't know, something to mitigate.
Yeah.
You
it
know?
doesn't happen as often.
The bar of the future. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that. I think the underage people trying to go out and get a drink probably doesn't happen that much here.
No.
Everybody knows everybody. You know everybody.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a downtown bar that's like a club atmosphere, and let's say Gonzaga's in session,
Right.
you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
You're gonna have kids trying to get in. That at that point, you've got a doorman with
Yeah.
an ID scanner. That's all he does.
I went to school in Moscow, Idaho.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was, party town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're probably trying to get into bars underage.
I didn't. I was one of the few that
You
said-
weren't?
No, I actually went to school when I was 21, and so I was one of the few guys on my hall that could go buy alcohol. And
Yeah.
everybody's like, hey.
How many
So you were
straw
the
sales
sleepy
did you
money.
provide, Steve?
Yeah, you were the
Actually,
dealer.
never did.
Yeah.
I know nobody's going to believe that I said that, but I never bought alcohol for anybody underneath.
Good
'cause
for you.
I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to get my ass
It's not
busted.
just that, but like for us in this industry, it's really hard to think that we show up to work every day with the same mentality of like hustle and bustle. And no matter how hungover you are, no matter how many days you've been doing this for, it's a taxing world for a lot of people. So, you know, it seems like the lifespan for generational bar owners, restaurant workers has definitely diminished
It's shrunk.
the window.
And you know, COVID helped facilitate a lot of that.
Yeah.
So we saw from our, well, you guys would see it
Yeah.
too, but just from my end,
Yeah.
being in distribution,
Yeah.
COVID really pushed a lot of these people that were kind of on the edge already of retiring or just getting out of the bar or restaurant that they owned.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw a lot of people exit the business during COVID because it gave them the reason, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this anymore.
Right.
I can't get employees. Food cost is rising.
I don't want to serve drinks wearing a mask. And
I'm done.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it gave them the reason to get out, maybe do something different or just totally retire, sell their assets.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
it seems like to me, and Jimmy and I kind of talked about this on a previous episode, it feels like bartending is one of those trades that's going away. It's like the plumbers, the electricians, those businesses are starting to go by the wayside. There's nobody to come in behind them to take over to do what they do. To have a really good, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong. Do you have a lot of people that want to get into bartending that are really, really, they just need their opening with the restaurant? Or is it like, hey, this is kind of a lost art, and the guys that are really, really good or the gals that are really good are retiring now, and now we don't have anybody to backfill this really high quality level service? Do you follow?
Yeah, I kind of sense what you're saying. God, from that level, I don't know. Like as far as somebody they're like they're a journeyman bartender. They've been doing it for 15,
They don't
20
use
years.
the phone with the app. How do I make that drink?
Yeah, they're not pulling up Mr. Boston's drink catalog to
Right.
find out how to make a Brave Bowl or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know many of those people anymore. Do you, Jim?
No.
That just
Yeah.
are a craftsman. They're out there. We've
Yeah.
got some.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like I said, being a tableside service, running a rail as a bartender is kind of a dying breed of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I feel like, and nowadays, the club is different. You know, 20 years ago, the bartender then and the bartender now, the bartender that I used to sit on the other side of the bar of is much different than it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably a handful now of guys that are our age, you know, so who've been in this industry for 15 to 25 years that are still at that same bar.
So,
Yeah.
so what would you say then? Because this is how dorky I am. This was an idea
love
that yeah, it's the idea that we had. We thought, okay, in a handful of years when we get bored and we want to, start our own little restaurant or whatever. We don't want to compete with Jimmy. We want to do something that's super unique. Maybe we get a place out, towards the state line or something.
Yeah.
And we wanted to start a poorhouse, which, for those that don't know, that's just beer and wine.
Just
right?
like a tavern license.
Yep.
Okay, no
Yeah.
spirits. Do you have to? Somebody told me the other day you still have to serve food.
You do.
Yep.
Okay.
In the
is
state
that-
of Washington, you do. I
Now
don't know
more
about
than ever,
Idaho.
Yeah, now more than ever. Yeah.
Washington, you have to, right?
So you can't just have alcohol. You have to have like
Snacks.
snacks and stuff.
So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
certain licenses that dictate certain times of day and night that will change, but
So this is what we wanted to do though. We wanted to make this little spot where it was like a tavern that felt like you were a hobbit in the Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
and
hell
you
yeah.
walk in and the tables are really big and the chairs are really big and you're like, oh wow. And you,
Big mugs of beer.
Exactly.
That
So
would
you're
be-
like, but kind of deck it out like all I don't know, what's the one in the first movie, the Prancing Pony?
Prancing
I think.
Pony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe get some waiters that are on stilts and they're like these big people. I don't know. That's how geeky I am, but
So downside of that, Steven, is the beer industry right now is really struggling.
Mm.
So
Is craft beer struggling still?
I believe so, yeah.
get into that. Why is
Yeah.
that?
For us, I think draft beer sales are down a little bit. Liquor sales are through the roof.
So people are drinking spirits more.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. And everything
It's
kind
got
of
to be
circles back. to-
more bang for your buck,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
I
said
know.
this morning, I walked in, I said, hey, I'm changing it up. No beer. Give me a Paloma.
There you go.
Mine was just calories, I guess. You know, I jumped on
Yeah.
the scale a couple days ago and it was 225. And I'm like, that's the most I've ever weighed. I'm like, God, I've got to.
I'm drinking a skinny Paloma.
Yeah, I've got to pull it back somehow. And I love, you know me, I love Fremont and all the
And I've-
Bodies and everything else that you have on.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing. I don't drink that much beer anymore.
Yeah.
As much as I love beer,
Yeah.
it's either bourbon or tequila or vodka. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe I don't know why I changed.
I think we just, like I said, is same as this restaurant kind of rolls. You have your, nightclubs that age out. You have neighborhood taverns and bars and restaurants that continue to keep their clientele. And I think you can kind of see the sense of we're just in a neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. As the days condense and as you don't have as much time to sit behind a bar anymore.
Yeah.
Your responsibilities change. And here, we just don't have that. We're in a neighborhood such as we don't have that younger generation of a college town that's coming out every day, 21 to 26, very little obligation to school and alcohol and partying and having fun. I think that, in here, obviously we're in a neighborhood, so we're very thankful for that.
So you've got to do your best to capture and keep those folks.
Yeah.
Because they live here. They
Yeah.
live 5 minutes away.
So you follow the trend, and I think
Hell, some of them are like right there.
Yeah.
And that
They can
trend
crawl
Just
home.
shamble over.
yeah, that
Yeah.
trend changes. So,
Right, yeah.
yeah. Nick,
Meander.
So
That's
when
right.
when we first started this whole food gig together, as to kind of where we're at now, we've always kind of battled food costs. We've always battled, I've never once questioned like what I'm paying for anything.
Yeah.
We've always been under the understanding that we're kind of going with the market, and that's kind of where you come in today. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about how many more restaurants now are price shopping because of the increase in food cost?
Yeah.
And
Commodity
wages.
Yeah.
wages, but it's food cost and wages.
Yeah.
But on the food side, yeah, the market hasn't been great the past 4 years. Inflation's crazy high on food,
Yeah.
especially food away from the home, like what you're in this setting.
Yeah.
It's done nothing but go up and up and up.
Yeah.
We're starting to see a little bit of relief on some stuff, but I don't know what's going to happen as far as like tariffs coming in from Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
Because during COVID, Trump had put some tariffs on the European states. So like your Italian wines, your imported like Parmesans and mozzarella, that stuff went crazy high
Yeah.
because of tariffs.
Yeah.
But as far as people price shopping, yeah, that happens every day. It's a funny industry because what we sell to you can get from a bunch of other places. You could go to Walmart, you could go to Fred Meyer's. So yeah, it's a constant competition on price.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's always about the fact that I don't have to spend 2 hours on the road.
Picking stuff up.
No, yes. I
Yeah.
need to be here, Nick. I want a truck to show up, drop it off. It's chilled, cold, ready to go, fresh. Whether it's in season or not. And we're in the Northwest, so
Yeah, we're not
obviously,
growing
like,
lettuce and tomatoes up
No,
here.
we're not.
We
I
have
mean,
potatoes and apples.
We're squeezing grapefruit and oranges, green
Yeah.
limes and lemons. I mean, that's
You made a great Paloma, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
was
looks
really
good.
yeah. So I mean, you have to really consider that we're just so far away from farm to table produce. That,
Yeah.
And nowadays, I think even as we've made some changes in the restaurant, the prep time, has changed the way that we produce good food. And so on that note, like this place, especially in the last 7 to 10 months, has probably transitioned to more of a, like a local neighborhood bar tavern versus a pizzeria.
Food first, but now it's
It's drink first.
tavern first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are eating at home a little bit more, but they will still come out to have a beverage, which is
That's
Yeah.
And to be honest, Jimmy, with our family, I mean, our kids are usually the driving force of where we're going to go that day for eating out. And even if they say, Dad, we're sick of pizza, I'm like, yeah, but it's brothers. We get to go down and we get a good pour.
Yep.
And we have people that we know. And so I would say out of every 10 times that we go out to eat,
Pizza.
8 of them are here.
Well,
So-
experience goes a long ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could speak on that. Like you just touched on that earlier when you said, you know, you want to establish a place where, you know, people want to follow you a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see just from like an economic standpoint, pizza's going to, that segment, the pizza segment, is going to continue to grow,
Yeah.
probably outgrow bar and grills and fine dining, fast casual.
Yeah.
Because there's that perceived value when you get an 18-inch pizza.
Yeah.
This is going to feed the whole family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So pizza's always been strong.
Yeah.
It's my favorite like type of food.
Yeah. To
Type-
make or to eat.
It
you know,
is.
Like,
Everybody likes it.
Yeah.
But it has that perceived value where you're getting the whole family fed for $30.
Yeah.
You know.
So if you have somebody out there then just in general that says, I kind of want to go into this industry, maybe it's not a pizzeria like this, maybe it is a poorhouse, maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's a restaurant, a hotel, whatever. What do you say to them then?
So I'm in that situation right now with one of my childhood friends. You've met Josh.
yes. Yeah.
They just bought a small little restaurant.
Yeah.
It'll seat like 30 people.
Yeah.
They haven't worked in restaurants. So I told them, I said, guys, because they have their own business, it's a totally different industry that they do really well in. But I said, guys, this is a totally different animal. You're going to have to be here every day, boots on the ground. Like
10 years is what I've heard. 10
Yeah.
years.
Oh, yeah. Get
So-
your hands dirty every day. You can't.
Yeah.
You're going to have to live in the restaurant for
Yeah.
the first 5 years.
Yeah. And it's hard on family, man. Yeah.
It is. And they're in a unique situation. They have 3 kids that are in their teens.
Yeah.
So they're going to help out. They're going to be working.
Yeah.
So they kind of have that labor pool built in where they have to go to work.
Yeah.
They have no choice.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a struggle for them and just in the beginning because it's a brand new industry for them. And it's always changing, as all industries do, but ours changes fast. And it's balls to the walls. You're busy all the time, then you're slow. The only consistency in restaurants is inconsistency.
You can probably tell then from doing food services, you can, when you start distributing to a new location, can you kind of tell, they're not going to make it? Or, I'll give it 6 months, they'll be done.
Yeah, we can tell, but you know, that's what we do. We don't just sell food. We try to help with other services.
Right.
Because I have a whole team of people behind me that have owned restaurants, that are retired chefs, that are bartenders. That can,
Okay, so you do more than just...
we consult.
Okay.
Yeah, it's consultative selling.
I mean, you want them to succeed,
Yes,
obviously.
Absolutely.
Yes, you want
Yeah.
more. How about this? Nowadays, you want more neighborhood local joints because what's happening is people that have been in this industry, like I said, that have choose to leave this industry. There's nobody to fill that gap.
No.
So now you're starting to see more and more big corporate ran businesses versus small mom and pops. You know, so I think the importance there is that we always, even for myself, we encourage people to continue to open up around us because at the end of the day, it's going to keep the neighborhood here in Liberty Lake. The more places that people have to go, the more people will want to come here because it may attract them to come to Liberty Lake.
And it builds that food
Yes.
culture.
And
yeah,
then
you want restaurants opening around you.
Yes, you want a lot of options. And the reason why you want that is because you want to keep the neighborhood, you want to bring people to the neighborhood. You know, and you want people to continue to support the neighborhood. And then you want your staff to kind of entrench themselves into that neighborhood.
So what you're saying is I should start the Prancing Pony then? Is that
Right next door.
Yeah,
Done.
right next door. And we would help each other,
Okay.
actually. We would
Well,
absolutely
you
help
walk
each other.
over that one, you're going to feel really tiny because
Yeah.
everything's super big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to help each other. Like, I mean, anytime we have a new food neighbor open up, we encourage our regulars and our staff to have a meal there, have a drink there.
You'll support.
Yeah, because like I said, at the end of the day, this restaurant food culture is one big family. Like the bigger the family, because this is a large percentage of the workforce.
I think it's the largest
The
outside of
largest,
the government.
Yeah.
I think the food service industry employs more Americans than anything outside of
I believe
government.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to think like that working pool is, you want that to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that for us is to continue to have more and more eateries, bars, restaurants, taverns, bistros open up around us.
Well, I'm going to pick your guys' brain then when we go
Yeah.
to pull the trigger on this. Like, what do I need? What do we, what do we serve? What do we not serve?
Heck yeah.
What do we pour?
Loggers. What do the hobbits drink?
Would mead? Yeah, I
Mead,
don't know. And then
there you
maybe
go.
that's dwarves. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we had this crazy idea. It was further than that. I'll geek out even more here. We thought because I do acting, so I thought, okay,
Yeah.
well let's get a bunch of my actor friends and we'll get them all prosthetics and make them into characters, and we'll set it up ahead of time where they come in like, okay, you guys are going to come in at like 6 o'clock on a Thursday night or Friday night or whatever, and have this little scene planned out. Maybe you smash a fake chair over somebody's back
Oh,
or
that'd
whatever.
be funny.
And everybody's like, what the hell is going on? Like,
The dwarves are here.
yeah, like, dude, the dwarf showed up. Or you got an elf today and he showed up and he grabbed a chest from behind the counter and counted it and walked out.
Yeah.
People are like, do you see that? And then they start getting their phones, they start filming, it starts getting traction. And
Dinner show.
yeah,
I think
that's
you're
what we
missing-
wanted
I
to
think
do.
you're missing the point here, Steve. Is when we work behind a bar. As for me personally, every day should be an experience kind of like that.
So dwarves
where,
every day.
Where you
Okay.
get a
Jimmy's
lot
a
of
dwarf. I'm
Yeah.
kind of like Gandalf.
yeah,
Yeah.
where you get a lot of life experience from other people, and every day you get to know like your employees a little bit better, right? And how they react, how they, responsibly become young adults. I think that's what's the beauty of this industry in food, is that the longer you're here and doing this in a positive way, the more connected you are to the younger adults that are around you, trying to do this for themselves, hopefully someday. That pool needs to grow. Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point, Jimmy, because you and I, that was one of the reasons we wanted to start our podcast in general, was the
Yeah.
idea that you're helping to kind of get them started in the right direction if they want to be in this industry.
Yeah. So what Nick's doing now in food service and what he was doing when he first started bartending, it's the same approach.
Yeah.
I hope that's how it is for you, Nick.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's customer facing. It's
Yeah.
providing that service, It's customer first.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of your customers, you're dead.
And so what led you from leaving working behind a bar to working in food distribution? What?
So I got married.
Yeah.
My father-in-law had worked in food distribution for like 40 years. He had ran a bunch of restaurants in his
4 or
20s.
40?
40.
Oh, man.
By the time he retired.
Okay.
At that time it was probably 30 years. And he just kept bugging me. And I was a bartender and I loved it. I was making tons of money. Granted, I was getting home at 4 a.m. every
Yeah.
night,
having a great time.
half cocked,
Yeah.
So he just kept bugging me. He's like, come work for my company that I'm working for. I've got good references for you. So I went through the process, got hired, and it was a good move.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm working instead of from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. some nights and then 4 p.m. till 4 a.m. I'm working, 7 in the morning till 5. Mm-hmm. It's more of a desk job.
Yeah.
So as far as like quality of life, it improved.
Yeah.
Big time. I had little kids.
Yeah.
At that point, we had 2 kids. They were both like 3 and 5. So it was a good transition as far as just personal life.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm doing the same stuff.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of today in our conversation is the fact that I think for the both of us, we're still in the same industry, doing exactly the same thing we did when we were kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we still share that in our friendship and the fact that we have been faithful to our wives for as long as we have, hopefully forever. Yes.
Yeah.
We have raised, a great young family, and we're still in this industry doing the same thing we did when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
No, nothing's
Yeah.
changed. We'll continue to quit drinking as many times as we have to. We'll continue to see each other when we can. Now it's more in passing versus our nights off or evenings off. But I think that's what makes our friendship so great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to relate to, and a lot of positive influence going forward when it comes to training young food service people. Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think that's what's missing. We need to try to find a better community of that.
It's probably better that you and I aren't like working behind the bar together.
That's yes,
Probably
100%.
a good thing. Yeah.
I don't know, Nick, how many
Well,
more.
that's Super Bowl. So do you do the other side of the bar,
This
though?
is the first year I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been to the Super Bowl party here in 3 years.
Jimmy stays away. He usually throws me the keys and says, "Hey, will you babysit the
Yeah.
patrons
Yeah.
on Super Bowl?" Because it gets wild.
Yeah,
It's kind of a customer appreciation day,
Yeah.
employee appreciation.
yeah,
Drinks are flying.
yeah.
I see. I've never seen Jimmy, and Jimmy has this just perfect, even keel. Like I've never seen him go above like a
You should see Jimmy at like a 10.
No,
I
yeah,
see Jimmy at like a 6.
I think what happened was I learned from restaurants past, experiences past, that, again, I'll reiterate this again, but if I don't leave this place when my shift is over and I continue to stick around
Yeah.
and sit on the other side of the bar, that at the end of the day I would no longer be in this industry if that was the case.
Or possibly married.
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, both.
That's a good place to wrap, dudes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you,
I was going to
guys.
tell you before, one of the things I do so I don't get 86 too early is it's my secret. I probably shouldn't give out my trade secret here. So I'll walk up, I'll get one drink, and then I'll come up to the next one and I'll say, "Hey guys, can I do another one?" And I'll do that a little bit. They're like, "Hey Rich, how you?" Like, excuse me, like they were ready to cut me off. I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm just joking. I'm an actor."
playing
and they're
with
like,
you.
"Oh, okay.
Good job.
So then if I come back up 3 or 4 drinks later and I'm a little bit slurring, they're like, "Oh, dude, he's just acting. He's just fucking with us."
Yeah, Nick. So hopefully we can continue this conversation at a.
We are. Good to see you, buddy.
At a. Hey, Richard, how are you doing?
How are you, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just wrapping this one, but
I think this is a great time to, cut it because you have to take off. But I think this also will lead us into a few more great conversations about the food service industry, and then how that affects people who work in this industry on a regular basis every day, and how hard this job is for bar owners, bar patrons,
Yeah.
Food distributors, and the whole staff.
Yeah, we've got some good stories.
We have great stories. Yeah, I think we'll
We
share
could get
that another
deep
day,
on
yeah.
on like COVID times.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
have
we're
some-
gonna have to
yeah.
dive into that at some point.
That one's wild.
Yeah, we've got some great stories. This is a good introduction about.
Has he told you any of that story? About the car coming through the front?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
briefly, but I want to
I
meet
was
the
here,
dude that's,
so let's
yeah.
do one and talk about that.
Yeah.
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 That
Sure.
was crazy.
That was my only day off in like
Doesn't
a year.
happen every day.
I
That
think.
That was
car,
yeah, that's the craziest bar story I've ever heard.
Is that why you put in the garage door? Or is
Yes.
the garage?
Yeah, that was part of the deal.
So that
You
was kind of
drive
a future blessing. Then,
You drive a
in way.
car through the front of the restaurant. We put up a roller door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. It worked
Love
out for COVID because we had the door open.
Airflow.
That's awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Nick.
Appreciate it,
your time
Nick. Good to
today.
meet
Thanks,
you.
guys. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Good Paloma. Yeah. Oh.
Great water, Jim.
I know, right?